Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Welcome to another episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host Dipshi, and today I have with me stress researcher Eliz Greene. Welcome to the show, Eliz.
It is a pleasure to be with you.
We're so glad to have you here today, Eliz. So can you start with introducing yourself and tell us about your wellness journey?
Absolutely. My journey into the world of wellness really started unexpectedly. Back in 2000, I was a dance teacher and a choreographer and 7 months pregnant with twins on bed rest when I had a massive heart attack. And fortunately, that bed rest was in a hospital, so I got great care right away. But in a series of just a few hours, my heart stopped and didn't beat. They were able to restart it, figure out what was wrong with my heart, deliver my beautiful baby girls 2 months early through C-section, and then I had open heart surgery. So it was a big changing day for all of us. And fortunately, I am well. My girls are 22 and seniors in college here in the United States. And we're very grateful that everything was in place. We got great care right away. But that experience, I came out of that knowing that I'd been given this weird story to tell for a reason and started sharing that story in order to inspire first women to pay attention to their heart health. And that over time really grew into looking into stress, which is one of the major risk factors for heart disease, but is the one that it's hard to measure. It's not like you can put a cuff on your arm and pump it up and say, oh, you are 70% stressed. That's not how it works. So it's often an unaddressed risk factor. And after having shared heart disease strategies and really had spent time learning about that so I could give good quality and responsible strategies, knew I needed to do the same thing when it came to the world of stress. So launched about 7 years ago, a research study on job stress where we surveyed, that first data set was more than 4,000 people from all over the world in all kinds of different jobs, talking about what are the major causes of stress in the workplace. And that's where the stress-proof strategies that went into my book came from, and have been sharing those all around the world.
Amazing. Like, your story is very inspiring. And like you said, whatever you experienced, it like coming out of that, like, and doing something what you do now is amazing and very inspiring.
Thank you.
Okay, so we know, we're familiar with the term stress, right?
Yeah.
So like we go to work, everyone faces daily stress in their lives.
Absolutely.
So the concept which we are going to discuss today is secondhand stress. So this is a pretty new term. Like, even for me, like, I also did not know much about like what is secondhand stress. So can you throw some light into it?
Absolutely. So let's talk briefly about what happens to you when your body perceives any kind of stressor in your environment. And the reaction that happens, there's something stressful in your environment, it triggers a cortisol reaction in your body, which I find absolutely fascinating because I like chemical reactions. And what happens is that stress hormone, cortisol, flows into your bloodstream. That makes lots of things happen in your body. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your blood even gets stickier. So for example, if what is causing that stress reaction is a potential car accident, you may not bleed to death. All of those things are very good when you're trying to avoid a car accident. What also happens in your brain is you are hyper-focused on the task at hand. If the radio was on, you no longer can hear it. You're just focused on avoiding that car accident. And when you're able to avoid the accident, that cortisol is supposed to leave your body, and all of those things that happened go back to normal. You're able to focus on other things again. Your blood pressure goes down, your heart rate goes down, your blood gets less sticky. The problem is when we live at that constant alert all the time, those things don't have a chance to come back down to normal. And when we live in an environment or work in an environment where there are stressors constantly happening, that stress reaction happens over and over and over again. So let's say that you are in a customer service line of work and you are working with people who are having a bad day. So every time you're answering a call, somebody on the other line is having a bad day. Your neurons, the things that trigger all of that I just talked about, mirror the neurons in that person who's having a bad day. So if they're angry, your body is signaled that there is anger in the environment. It starts to react in the same way. That's actually how empathy works. Our ability to empathize with somebody else is related to how our neurons mirror their neurons. So that's in many ways a good thing. We are able to empathize with what is going on in another person. It's also that I'm sure we've all been in a crowded room where everybody's kind of chatting and it's all fine. And something happens way over on the other side and the mood in the room changes very quickly, like, whoo, what just happened? That's a mirror neuron reaction. So when you get that call, your stress reaction is triggered. That's that secondhand stress. It's not necessarily a bad thing because, as I said, that's the empathy reaction. However, when it triggers that response and you're getting stickier blood and higher blood pressure and higher heart rate, and now your brain can't really think creatively or critically, those are things that make it very hard for you to do the job at hand. So taking steps to try to recognize what's going on and consciously lower that cortisol level back down to normal or close to normal so that you can function in the way that your body is most effective.
So this secondhand stress is mostly caused by external factors, right?
Right. It is, in more particularly by other people. So it is other people who are stressed, who are angry, who are sad, who are whatever it is. Your body mirrors that emotion that they're sending towards you. I often call this stress dumping. Somebody's having a bad day, they come and pour their stress all over you, and your body reacts to it. And it's a natural reaction. It's not something that, you're not handling it well. That's just a natural reaction. But when you feel it happening, when you know that it's happening, you can take steps to bring your stress level down so you don't end up suffering the effects of that stress or turning around and dumping the stress on somebody else.
Absolutely. So it is pretty contagious.
It is. Absolutely. Stress is contagious. And I was just talking to somebody. We were getting ready for a program for their workplace. And somebody asked, what do you do about the people who are lightning rods on the team? They're the person that's probably the easiest to talk to, the one who everybody goes to with their problems, but yet everybody's dumping their stress on this person. They're the lightning rod for the stress in the team, which means that they're constantly having the stress reaction. And it makes it hard for them to get their job done. Also, it may be hard for them to get the job done if all of their time is being taken up by the same thing.
Well, this concept is pretty interesting to know. If you think that way, secondhand stress, it is, stress is something we know that we all have it, but then most, I think now, if we see, most of the time, we are always involved in the secondhand stress. We are often affected by it in our everyday life, because whenever we go out and we interact with people, something or the other happens and we get to know a lot of information, good and bad, and sometimes we get really affected, right?
Absolutely true. And I want to say two things about that. First, stress isn't good or bad. It's just a natural reaction that we have to what's in our environments. Our bodies don't actually know the difference between the car accident and a surprise birthday party. It is the same chemical reaction, but the way we feel about those things is much different. So not only is that stress dumping, somebody's having a bad day and they're pouring it on our head, that's a stress reaction. But when we're around somebody who is just joyful, that is also contagious. So being around somebody who is just in a good mood and joyful and, you're sharing laughs, it's the same sort of mirror neuron situation that's going on. You are reflecting back to them what they're giving to you, which is why it's great to have friends who are that person for you. Hopefully, the person you choose to spend your life with is that person for you.
Exactly. We even say, right, that when we surround ourselves with positive people, we also tend to be positive and we start becoming optimistic. And similarly, when we are surrounded by negative people, we also start thinking like them, and we also start thinking negatively.
Right. Absolutely true. And we are naturally designed to look for the problems in our environment. I mean, that is how we're designed. And then some of us are really good at that. The people who are project managers, and certainly in the healthcare field and lots of different things, engineers, they are always looking for the problem in the system to solve. That is their natural state, and they're really good at it. But that can lead us to constantly be looking at the negative and triggering our own stress. So periodically, if we can turn it around and just look for what is actually working, what is doing well in the system, that can shift for us that stress reaction.
So how do you know that a person is suffering from secondhand stress when you see them? Is there any way to find out?
So it's really noticing what is going on in your own body. And the symptoms of secondhand stress is the same. Those symptoms are the same, just in a regular stress reaction caused by something else in your environment, whether that's a car accident or whatever. So it's paying attention to things like your heart rate going up, or feeling your heart kind of pounding in your ears, or it might be you suddenly get cold or hot, or you have stomach distress, or you're just feeling paralyzed. Like, I don't know what to do, can be a symptom. So there's emotional ones. Long term, there are things that happen to us that indicate that we're having a chronic level of high stress. And that could be physical things that are like your blood pressure is high, but oftentimes it's gaining weight or feeling, again, those tummy troubles, having trouble sleeping, being more tearful, like just being on the brink of tears all of the time. I worked with a group of hotel managers right after everything started opening up after COVID. And boy, folks were sharing with me regularly that the way they got through the day is to go out to their car and cry. And these are guys. When you're at a high level of stress for an extended period of time, your body will try to get rid of the cortisol in any way it can. Crying can be a way of releasing that cortisol. It doesn't mean that you're not handling the situation well. It means that your body is trying to help you out.
What would you say is the primary cause of secondhand stress? Is there like a common link? Like, for example, I'm talking to someone and that person is sharing with me, communicating with me. So is it possible that every time someone tells me something sad or negative about their life, it is going to cause me secondhand stress? Is it like that?
It's usually what level it's coming at you at, and whether or not you feel responsible for solving that person's problem. So if your child is calling you from university and is struggling with a problem that you don't know how to solve for them, that is probably going to be stressful for you. If you've picked up a call from someone who and you're in customer service and somebody is very angry and tone of voice and volume of voice and the words that they are using feel like a barrage hitting you, that for sure is going to cause a stress reaction. So it depends. I do think it's a combination of how that person is communicating with you and how invested you feel in terms of solving their problem.
Yeah. So like it's on us, right? So if a person who is very extremely close to us comes and shares something with us and we can't help them, we're not been able to help them, and we also feel helpless in the process, that can cause us secondhand stress. But again, if like a random person comes to us and just shares their problem, we might give them a suggestion or two, but then we will not be deeply involved and invested in them, right?
Correct. And some of the way that we deal with this secondhand stress is really trying to frame the interaction for the other person and for us. So I have 3 questions that when you recognize that this is a secondhand stress situation, it makes it easier if we can go through 3 questions that will make a difference. And I'm just pulling them up for you so that I can make sure that I give you all 3 appropriately. I liked what you said as I'm pulling these up. I like what you said about the person that you're very close with as opposed to the person that you're not very close with. It is much more likely that you're going to have this sort of empathy reaction with somebody you already have a relationship with. And it's a little easier to protect yourself from ones that are from strangers. I think the real danger of the secondhand stress situation is that it happens in the moment where you're like, whoo, you're getting this barrage of stress kind of poured on your head. You're going to have a stress reaction. The problem can be, though, is when it's all done and you're trying to move on and you keep revisiting it and it keeps triggering that stress reaction. That can be a real problem when you don't, then it's very hard to stop that stress reaction because it keeps going on and going on and going on. So it's one of those things that if you don't take a moment to actually be able to recognize what is going on and then take steps to distance yourself in a way so that you're not constantly triggering that stress reaction for yourself. So when it happens, when let's say somebody's coming at you, you're on the phone with a customer, they're having a bad day, and then you feel your heart rate going up, you recognize that you are having a stress reaction. One of the best questions is, especially if you're dealing with somebody that you do know, what if this is the best they can do? If you just give them the grace that their reaction in the situation is the best they can do right now. And part of the way that we can disarm the situation is just to validate the feelings that they're having at the moment. Listen to what's coming at you, really dive into the idea that this may be the best reaction they can have at the moment, and then reflect and validate that, like, yes, I hear that sounds like it's a real problem, and I can understand why you're angry about it. Right there, you validated that what they're feeling is reasonable, even if to you it does not seem like a reasonable reaction. Like, I can understand why you're angry. And then moving on to the second question is, what if there's something about this situation that I don't understand? We all come to this life with different experiences, different backgrounds. And while the situation to me may not seem like a big deal, to that person, it may absolutely be a big deal. And being able to just sit back
Mm-hmm.
Maybe ask a question or two about, I understand that you're very upset. Can you tell me a little bit about why this is making you so angry? Like, just so you can understand what's going on, and you may find more information that allows you to solve the problem or move on. And the third question is, what if this is not about me? This is a very useful one when you're dealing with somebody who you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're dealing with the person in your workplace who is constantly just like, just picking, just like, and very few people wake up in the morning and say to themselves, you know what? My plan is to make Dipshi's day really horrible today. It probably does not happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just say, all right, it's probably not about me. It allows you to take yourself out of the equation and deal with the problem rather than the emotion. And then asking the question to really frame what they need from you, especially when it's somebody that you care about. Asking, do you need me to help you solve this problem, or do you just need to talk about it? Both of those are perfectly good outcomes. But if all they need is somebody to talk to and just to be heard, you can stop thinking about how to solve the problem. And oftentimes asking for permission to offer a solution really helps. It could sound something like, I have a couple of ideas if you'd like to hear them, rather than just launching into, here's what I think you should do. And if it's in that customer service area, asking what they really want can really help make them take a moment, take a breath, and think about what they want out of the situation. Do they want a solution, or do they just want to tell you that this didn't turn out the way they wanted?
At the end of the day, everything comes down to communicating, right?
Absolutely.
So communication is the main key to resolving matters of stress, and in fact, every other thing.
Right? Yes. Yes, I agree. Most of the time when I am called into a workplace because they have a work-life balance problem or a morale problem, or they know they're going through change and they have stress in their environment, it almost always comes down to some kind of communication breakdown, that people are feeling uncertain or they're feeling unsupported. And a lot of times the leaders will turn around and say, well, but that's not the reality at all, that the future of the company is certain, or there's all kinds of support. It's just that people haven't heard it either often or enough, or in a way that they really trust.
People often fail to open up, and that causes them stress most of the times.
There are people who need to talk about what's going on, and there's people who process that internally and quietly. And one isn't necessarily better than the other, as long as we're processing our stress for ourselves. But there are things that we can do to bring that stress level down, that cortisol level down. It's a way of signaling our body that something has changed and it's okay to let go of that cortisol. And one of the big ways we can do it is to raise our heart rate up, leave it up there for 10 minutes, and then bring it back down again. And it's why exercise is often called the antidote to stress, but it's just a way of signaling our body that something has changed and it's time to let that cortisol go. And there's lots of things that can raise our heart rate that don't include, putting on shoes and running, 3 miles. It doesn't have to be that much. Small little chunks of time that you're just moving around can have the same effect, or doing things like cheering on a team. If you're a big sports fan and you're standing on your feet and you're yelling and you're clapping and you're doing all that, and you get your heart rate up, when it finally, that point is scored and you sit back down, you feel that sort of like, ooh, that is cortisol leaving your body. So you can find different ways. And I talked about that release that can happen when you cry. Same thing can happen when you laugh. Anytime you're changing your breath, that's a signal too. So laughing, singing. So if you're singing in the shower or singing in your car, that's a great way to signal your body to let go of stress.
And what about meditation? I believe meditation also helps a lot.
So meditation in a big way is changing how you breathe. So that absolutely is a way to signal your body to let go of that stress. It's also, for the people who can do it, a way of turning off your brain, disconnecting from what is constantly triggering your stress reaction. Things like uncertainty and overwhelm. It's not like it's that car, going to get into a car accident and then the situation is done. It's just constantly there. So it's constantly triggering that stress reaction. So if you can disconnect from that cause of stress, your body can recover from the stress it's under. So that's why meditation can be a high potency activity, because you're not only changing your breath, you're also shutting that brain off. But if you have trouble doing that, there's lots of other ways. It's why for some people exercise does the same thing. So being fully occupied as opposed to contemplative, for some people, is where they need to go. And they need to be doing something either with their brain or their body to distract from what's causing them stress.
So what are the life-threatening consequences that can develop because of secondhand stress?
So like stress can cause things like heart disease and ulcers, and all kinds of different things in our body are affected by stress. It is, as I said at the beginning, one of the major risk factors for heart disease. Our bodies are not meant to have that level of cortisol in it for an extended period of time. And as I said, nobody really needs higher blood pressure, stickier blood. It's higher levels of cortisol also are kind of evil in terms of it will make you gain weight, which is also not good for us. And high levels of cortisol make it very, very hard to sleep. And our bodies regenerate during sleep. If we're not getting enough high quality sleep, and most of us don't, we don't give our bodies that chance to recover. Sleep is one of the most efficient ways to get rid of cortisol. That's sort of how our bodies are designed. But again, if you have high cortisol levels to start with, it makes it harder to get to sleep. Or maybe you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain starts going and you're firing that stress reaction and you can't get back to sleep. So doing something before bedtime to disconnect from what causes you stress and allow your body to settle down, start getting rid of that cortisol, can really help with that good night's sleep.
So basically, with stress, our heart is the most at risk, right?
But stress is really associated with all kinds of diseases. A high stress level will make it more likely that you'll have cancer or any number of other ailments. And
what are some ways to resist the stress of others, like the secondhand stress?
The first one is really noticing what's going on. What are you noticing about the communication that's coming from them? What is happening in your body as a result? And taking steps to start protecting yourself from that, recognizing that you're having a stress reaction, framing that interaction that hopefully will allow you to back off that stress reaction, doing things to signal your body to let go of the stress, whether that's just taking a few deep breaths or getting up and walking around. Going outside is as silly as it may seem, just going outside. There was a recent study in the American Psychological Association publication talking about just listening to bird song can reduce your stress level. Going outside and listening to bird song in nature really helps. So it doesn't have to be a big thing that you do in order to shut down that stress reaction and recover from it. But anytime that we recognize that that stress is building up, taking steps to bring it back down again can really make a difference.
And I believe the things you mentioned, we can do this on a daily basis, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not that difficult to follow this basic steps of going out on walks, on be amidst nature and listen to birds chirping. So I don't think it's that hard for us to do.
No, but when we are busy, these are the things that we let slide. We prioritize other things over taking the time to actually recover from what we ask our bodies and brains to do. Even if you prioritized yourself for 15 minutes in a day, that would make a difference. So it doesn't have to be a big change. Small changes can make a big difference in your long-term health.
And I've seen we do not prioritize our health that much until something happens to us, or until that moment that we are we have suffer from something. We do not get that realization that our health is equally important. In fact, it is the most important thing, which we should prioritize over everything else.
Well, listen, we all know what we're supposed to do, right? It's not like that information is hidden from us. It's there. You know, we're supposed to eat lots of fruits and vegetables. We're supposed to drink lots of water. We're supposed to move our bodies. We know what we're supposed to do, but we don't usually do things that we're supposed to do. We do things that we want to do. So we have to be able to to connect the things that we need to do to have a well-working body and brain to something that we want. And I think that's the benefit of the wacky story I have, is that honestly, that experience, having a near-death experience, will give you a different sense of perspective. And the fact that I had the opportunity to be the parent with my husband of our girls was a gift. And I knew that I had to do the work to be able to watch them grow up, to have the life that we wanted to have with our family. And it's not because I had a heart attack and knew that I needed to exercise, so I became, avid workout queen. I don't actually really like to exercise. It's not my favorite activity, but I know it's the price I have to pay in order to get to the moments I don't want to miss. So my girls are seniors in college right now. We are looking forward to a graduation this June and another one coming up in December. If I don't do the work, I don't get to go to those events, right? Something could happen to me if I don't pay attention to my stress level and my health. We all have moments that we don't want to miss. So if you can connect what you need to do to that thing you don't want to miss, if you can say, I will exercise for 30 minutes every day because I'm supposed to, because I don't want to miss that college graduation, seeing my girls get married, welcoming their children into our family, all those things I don't want to miss, that's what gets me doing what I need to do. And we all have those things. So if we can combine those two together, that's when real change is possible.
We need to realize this thing and then work on it and not take our health for granted.
Absolutely right.
So when talking about stress, workplace stress is one of the most common things which is trending these days.
Yes.
We go to work, we are busy achieving those deadlines. We often skip our meals while doing so. And each one of us is stressed regarding our work, even if we admit it or not. Right. So do you think employers or organizations can do something to promote healthy habits and help employees get rid of this secondhand stress or any kind of stress for that matter?
Absolutely.
And how can they identify the secondhand stress as well in their employees?
So there are employees who know that that is just part of the job. So for your frontline workers, the people that are interacting with the public, secondhand stress is just part of the job. So the employers who really value their people and know, particularly for those public-facing employees, those are high turnaround jobs. If they can design an environment that recognizes that this is part of the job and provides support to the people who are experiencing that and give them the tools, whether it's from me or somebody else, that allows them to recognize what's happening and take steps to counteract what's going on in their own bodies, and then have policies that really encourage and normalize people taking vacations, taking breaks, talking to mental health professionals, recognizing that their stress level has reached a point where something needs to change and they can talk to their direct supervisor about it and not feel like they're being shamed for it. These things, you can build an environment where even though it is a stressful environment, people can work and live well underneath all of that pressure. And I know for sure from all of the work that I've done, the hundreds of leaders and employees I've interviewed, that people will walk through fire when they feel seen, valued, and connected to the mission of the organization.
The work culture plays an important role in this. Employers need to provide that comfort to the employees so that they can open up, and similarly they should be someone whom the employees look up to, right?
Absolutely. And I think the best gift any leader can give their people is to be predictable. That their employees can absolutely count on the way that leader is going to react and the support and resources they're going to provide.
Absolutely. Okay. So it brings me, so the session is almost over. We're at the end of it. So it brings me to the last question of the session, which is, would you like to share anything more with our listeners? Any valuable tips or suggestions which all of us can follow?
Absolutely. And what I have for you is a group of resources that I have on a website called stressproofnow.com, stressproofnow.com. There are loads of free resources there about how to cope with stress dumping, about how to figure out how you disconnect from the stress you can't avoid, how to even measure what level of stress you're experiencing right now, because of course you can't put a cuff on your arm and pump it up. But there are lots of ways to signal to your body that it's time to let that cortisol go and recover from the stress that you're under. Again, it doesn't take much to make a difference. Committing even 50 minutes a day can really make a difference in how you feel, how your body works, and how your brain works.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eliz, for sharing the suggestions with us. They were very insightful.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Hope you had a great time talking to me today.
I did.
Yes, the entire session was great. I got to learn a lot of things. I believe our listeners will be able to do that as well. So thank you for giving us your time today. And
my pleasure.
Hope to talk about some other topic in the near future someday.
Sounds great.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.